When I first entered the workforce at a school, I was not looking at acting. It was something I had dabbled with before. I certainly had a lot of fun with it, but at that time I thought, well, what do you have to do to that? You have to cross the country and go to LA, maybe New York, definitely way far away from Tennessee. And my mind was, I don't want to do that. I love it here. It's my home. And the world changed, especially getting into the COVID years. It actually became a lot more accessible. For example, being a Tennessean and coming over to Dallas, I didn't have pre-existing relationships with the showrunner, Jared O'Flaherty, or anyone else on the team at the time. I knew a few of the actors, and I had recently connected with the casting director, but as far as that actually coming together, that was just a conventional casting process. So the self-tape process was around before 2020, but it became the standard that time, and it, as a lot of things did from that era, that one stuck around, and so that's still what you see more often than not. The in-person audition is not dead, and I know a lot of casting directors in particular pine for those days of in-person auditions, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But I sure cannot complain myself about the benefits of having that kind of access. And so the next thing you know, you're crossing into another state, working with people you've only connected with through Zoom and through these casting sites, and then you're on this show that, again, was shot in not just another city, but another state. So that accessibility that didn't used to exist really changed the scene. And so by the time I started taking it seriously, well, even in my hometown, there was a lot more going on in the film world than I expected, and that was really a pleasant surprise. And I do a lot in the Christian space, and that area, Middle Tennessee and really Dallas as well, are two of the biggest de facto hubs for the Christian film world, Christian media in general.
Welcome to today's Heart of the Hustle. I'm here with Carter Nelms. I'm so excited to have you here. This is our first, full-fledged actor.
Oh, really?
I'm so excited.
Well, it's good to be here.
Thanks so much.
Dive in.
So tell us, you've been here for the last week or so here in the Dallas area. You've been doing kind of a press tour. Tell us what you're working on. Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, well, a lot of that's been getting new photos, things like that, general use stuff. Yeah. And, of course, I gave a chance to be here today. I'm building into the next season of things. There have been some cool projects I've had a chance to do, and there's some others that are in the works as well. And so it's all about building into that next season of things.
So tell us what is the most recent thing that has launched?
The most recent thing is a movie called Vindication, Search and Rescue. This was just released, what are we today? Just a little over a week ago now. It's on two platforms. It's on Angel Studios platform, and it is on Redeem TV. It is a movie that takes place in the world of a TV show called Vindication. You don't have to watch the rest of the show if you've not seen it yet in order to watch it.
Because it's based on a show.
It is based on a show, yes. It's very much a standalone thing. So if you have seen the show, you'll have rewards from kind of knowing what's going on, some of those pre-existing relationships. But I actually had not seen the show myself when I was cast in it, and even by the time we shot it. And very easy to pick up for someone who has not, by design. It's released again on Angel and Redeem TV. It's about a little under an hour and a half, so it's sort of a shorter movie. It was conceived as a standalone episode, but it was a whole lot of fun to work with.
Tell us about your character.
And I'm cautious on this because intentionally...
Are you not allowed to tell us?
Oh, I can. But intentionally with the trailer and some other media, not everything is revealed about my character. But in short, he is the guy that comes to... I guess I should tell a little more about the concept overall here. So the original show was conceived as sort of an NCIS concept, but what if the characters were Christian?
Oh, cool.
Of course, talking about Redeem TV, Angel Studios, and that idea originally began as a short film, and then a second short film that continued that story, each story being a standalone arc, but with those same characters. And eventually that developed into a series. And so you started seeing long-form storylines, and you can even, if you watch the whole show, see the evolution of things as it goes all the way from season 1 to season 4, and even from season 4 into the movie. So it's really got an interesting real-life history to it all. So taking that to this show here, and I don't want to say anything that would spoil for anybody who's midway through the show itself right now.
Come on, give us some spoilers. Tell us
Well,
things we can't find out anywhere else.
I will say that the main character is, of course, a detective. My character comes to him with a case to solve. I know that's kind of the bread and butter for a show like this, but there's a couple of arcs going on at the same time in this movie that are a little bit intertwined.
But maybe we don't know they're intertwined, and then they become intertwined.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe things are connected you wouldn't necessarily think are connected. And I will say, when you first see my character, he's a little dorky, and his case is a bit of an eye roll at first for the primary detective, and it's a kind of a fun, goofy introduction, but you realize there's a little more to it than you initially thought, and it progresses as the film goes. All in all, it was a really fun project to get to do.
Was it filmed here in Dallas, or?
It was,
okay.
yes. Yes, it was filmed a few different locations from the name of the studio. It was shot actually about a year ago, last April. But yeah, it was shot here in the Dallas area. It was, I think, about a 10-day shoot, something like that.
It's amazing that you can do a full movie in 10 days.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's on the shorter end of a feature film. It's under 90 minutes long, but it really is wild. Honestly, it'll blow your mind in some cases. Even big Hollywood stuff. I can't remember the days it took to shoot Whiplash, which I've not actually seen myself, but it stuns. It's stunning how quickly they shot that movie. And not everything you can do that way, but yeah, 10 days they shot this whole thing.
I have a client who worked on Dune, and I feel like she was gone for like 4 months. But
Yes.
that is a lot of, you know, it's all CGI, and, you know, I'm not allowed to say anything else, but because the movie hasn't come out yet. But sometimes we have to keep those things to ourselves, even though I got a few little spoilers.
Nice.
A few little spoilers from her. But you don't live here in Dallas, though. You live in Nashville.
Yes. I'm a native Tennessean, and with that, I suppose that's partly why when I first entered the workforce at a school, I was not looking at acting. It was something I had dabbled with before. I certainly had a lot of fun with it, but at that time I thought, well, what do you have to do to that? You have to cross the country and go to LA, maybe New York, definitely way far away from Tennessee. And my mind was, I don't want to do that. I love it here. It's my home. And the world changed, especially getting into the COVID years. It actually became a lot more accessible. For example, being a Tennessean and coming over to Dallas, I didn't have pre-existing relationships with the showrunner, Jared O'Flaherty, or anyone else on the team at the time. I knew a few of the actors, and I had recently connected with the casting director, but as far as that actually coming together, that was just a conventional casting process. In fact, Jared actually built his own casting platform. It's called Actor Bay, and he launched it with this movie. It's still running today. It sort of began, I suppose, as his own little baby project, and he pushed it out there into the real world and actually started casting his own stuff. But there have been other projects that have come together, really, really cool stuff. But the process of using that is the same as everywhere else. You see the listing, you submit yourself, the casting director will take a look at your photo materials, select some people to send out the tape, and so I got the request for the tape. I think I submitted for at least 3 characters, and so you don't know who you're going to get a response from. You may fit something or think you do, and sometimes you end up being cast as somebody that you didn't think was your top fit. You never know. You just never know what the process is going to be. In this case, reading the description of the character, I thought fit me pretty well. I thought this was
and
the
is that
top
the
guy.
role you got?
And that ended up being the only tape request I got, and then that ended up leading to the role itself. But that whole process, the self-tape process, was around before 2020, but it became the standard that time, and it, as a lot of things did from that era, that one stuck around, and so that's still what you see more often than not. The in-person audition is not dead, and I know a lot of casting directors in particular pine for those days of in-person auditions, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But I sure cannot complain myself about the benefits of having that kind of access. And so the next thing you know, you're crossing into another state, working with people you've only connected with through Zoom and through these casting sites, and then you're on this show that, again, was shot in not just another city, but another state. So that accessibility that didn't used to exist really changed the scene. And so by the time I started taking it seriously, well, even in my hometown, there was a lot more going on in the film world than I expected, and that was really a pleasant surprise. And I do a lot in the Christian space, and that area, Middle Tennessee and really Dallas as well, are two of the biggest de facto hubs for the Christian film world, Christian media in general. Really.
There's a lot that comes out of Atlanta as well,
There
and
is.
I don't know if that's more Christian based, but I think there is quite a bit out of Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously Vancouver.
Vancouver, yeah.
It seems like every movie I watch comes out of Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver, all places out of the country at that point. Yeah.
I want to talk about one of your other shows, The Pursuit.
Yes.
I heard an interview with the casting director, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
reminded me of something you just said around, like, sometimes you interview or you audition,
Yeah.
and you don't know which part is gonna they're gonna give you, right? And you think maybe this one or that one.
Yeah.
And she said when she saw your tape, she was like, he could be perfect for multiple roles. Oh my gosh, where are we going to put him? And so tell us about that show.
Yeah, absolutely. That one was a lot of fun. This one was designed for social media, so it's broken into these 90-second episodes. The whole script pieces together as one continuous, almost short film. I'm guessing here, I think it would probably be 45 minutes or so, maybe a little shorter, maybe a little longer, if you were to piece it all together. But the whole project will be broken into 16 or 17 90-second social media episodes, each one focusing on a different founding father or mother. I think about 4 or so women from that era are characters introduced. It takes place in this bar. Janine Turner is the woman you're speaking of. She was the director, producer, and also actor in this as well. She's a fictional woman named Mary, who's running this bar that just so happens to be the pub that all these founding fathers like to frequent. And so first episode, Patrick Henry walks in.
That's
the
your
character I
character?
played was Patrick
Okay.
Henry, yes. And then the second episode, he has rehearsed his speech for Mary and sat down, and they're excited. And then the door opens, and lo and behold, there's John Adams walking in, frustrated with his efforts of getting this Declaration of Independence written. And next episode, he's in there griping with all these frustrations, and we need a Declaration of Independence, but who is going to write this thing? You should. No, I'm too abrasive. It must be someone else, but who? And then in comes Thomas Jefferson, and of course he's got his own resistance, and no, I'm going home to see my wife, and it just progresses. Ben Franklin comes in next. At the moment, those first 3 episodes, Patrick Henry, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson have released. Ben Franklin will be introduced midway through next week. And there will be more episodes coming weekly that should go all the way up to 4th of July in America's 250th year of existence. But that's the whole concept of the show. And yes, going back to the audition process of it all, with it being founding fathers and the rough demographic that they're looking for, and that comes down to race and age and gender and all these different things, right? And a lot of them were men that I fit physically as far as that goes. So I submitted for, going from memory, I think Thomas Paine, Lafayette, Patrick Henry, obviously. It was about 5 total. I'm trying to remember all 5 of them, but it was several, and each one, their audition was roughly the episode that focused on them. So with it being 90 seconds or so, sometimes you see auditions that are 4 or 5 pages long and multiple scenes, that kind of thing. But with this one, it was more of these bite-sized chunks. And so you make a different decision for each of these characters. Most of these, we all have an idea of who these people were, but a lot of that's based in the mythos of how we think of the American Revolution. And once you start diving in and learning facts about these characters you didn't know, that may shape your performance and understanding a little bit. And that's something that can lead into a conversation about the entire acting process. But just to give one example, with Patrick Henry, I did not know that he had actually been caring for his ill wife leading up to his speech about, I forget the exact time range, but it's a matter of a few weeks, month and a half, 2 months. His wife had just passed away before he gave that speech. Yeah, I had no idea about that. That was news to me. Now, there's nothing in his speech where he refers to that, and obviously nobody was there with a camera. If you're playing somebody real from the 1970s, you might have that kind of footage to go off of. So you have decisions to make as an actor, and in a way some freedom, but also a little more responsibility, because you have to find that person from text and records and even some hearsay and really dive in. And any different person who plays this character is going to have a different version of that character, and hopefully you're being as honest as you have the ability to be when you're doing something like that. But yeah, diving into those kinds of details. And
walk us through the process to do that. Like, how did you kind of find him? Because again, you don't have, photographs,
right,
some writings, but you don't have video, you don't have audio. Tell us how you decided who he was, how you wanted to play him, what he should sound like, right?
Yeah.
How he should stand.
Yeah.
That whole process is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, in the audition process, when it came to how he spoke, accent, that kind of thing, I didn't want to cling too tightly to anything. There was a little bit of French accent in Lafayette, but when it came to these people, I just went with speaking voice. Didn't want distraction with something like that, because you can fine-tune those elements later if you need to. You also might find yourself clinging to something that's not really even right for the character at that stage of things. So Janine actually told us, obviously with the exception of Lafayette, who needed his French for characters like Patrick Henry, Ben Franklin, all these other characters, she did care about accent, but she didn't want anybody doing accents. She was more listening for how people spoke naturally. And Patrick Henry was Virginian. It's not quite as southern as Tennessee, perhaps, but it's not too far out of the range. And so that sort of thing was something that was not, there was no accent brought into the character. It was a specific decision that really went up to Janine herself to just use your own speaking voice. Yeah. But there is something that comes out of you, and I do believe, to look at myself and the tapes that I sent in for each character, that you got a very different character with every single take, or with every single tape. And hopefully you see that the moment that the character enters the room. Yeah. And so some are a little more, to get on the surface level stuff. Some are a little more serious, some are a little more passionate. Patrick Henry was built on passion, and you're thinking, why is he here, right? You and me right now, we have a purpose for being here. And even as I'm talking to you and you're looking at me and nodding, you're still behaving in a certain way. Someone could observe you, and they might see qualities of you and even some of your thought process as you're doing nothing but sitting there and listening. And so when Patrick Henry comes into this bar and he's coming to Mary, and his first line is entering the bar and just saying his line. And so when you're taping, you have decisions to make, and then once you get on set, the director may say, okay, here's what I'm going for here and here. In that case, there's multiple ways to do that. And so once we actually shot it, Janine was the one that made the decision, okay, when you come in, do it like he's got this idea for the speech he's doing, and he comes in here all the time, and they know each other well, which was obvious already from the script. So when he says that line, he's saying it as practice with Mary. Like, let me just hit her with this and see what she thinks about it. And so he comes in already kind of excited, and then she's, Patrick Henry. And he comes in and orders his drink, and they start chatting. So, how are you changing the world today? And that leads into him finally rehearsing a speech after he's, I'm doing this. Well, what's the gist of it? I don't remember the exact lines right now, but she starts asking him about his speech, and he gets up and he just starts giving the speech right there on the spot, right? And of course, the line comes back up again, give me liberty, give me death, and by then it's a different moment, right? Now he's actually rehearsing the speech. He's not just practicing that one line. Yeah. But
because that's what he's known for, is
yes.
that, right? Give me liberty or give me death.
Yes.
Like, he's the originator of that. And so you referred to a speech that he gave. I assume it's the speech where he said, give me liberty or give me death.
It is.
Tell us, for those of us whose American history was a long time ago, give us a little bit of a recap of why that was important and why he's important.
Yes. So I know I had heard this speech before, but it had been a long time. I would have been probably a student back then myself.
Ninth grade or
yeah,
something.
Something like that, yeah. And so I had to look it up. And so I didn't know the exact time frame of it. I didn't know that it was over a year before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was given to the Virginia legislature, and the exact issue at play was his case was for raising up a militia in defense against the British Army. They were not at that moment firing their guns at Britain, but they understood the stakes at play, and Britain had themselves built up forces essentially to keep them in line. They'd not gone to war yet themselves, but they could see the writing on the wall. So he begins his speech in one place, and he makes appeals to the people he's speaking with, knowing, even acknowledging as he opens his speech, that not everyone is going to agree with him. And he does a phenomenal job of breaking down one layer at a time. It's rife with rhetorical questions all the way through.
Very Socratic method.
Very,
Yeah.
yes. And of course, give me liberty or give me death is the final line and the ultimate thesis. And so that is, and again, I'm speaking from having read his words myself and brought that into performance, but that is where he's trying to take everyone into the room. He has to make a case that these are the only two options. And of course, the full line is, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And even that is a plea. Some people need to know that there are others who will throw themselves out there. When you have that guy that, I don't care what you do, this is what I am doing. And deep down, you know they want to do it, but they're afraid they don't want to be the guy to be the only one to do it. Well, now you can win somebody over that way. If they know they're not going to lose you because my leading this charge is not dependent on you joining me. And you've removed somebody's fear that they're going to be left behind. A major theme of the entire American Revolution is unity. And it's important that they were still 13 separate states after the founding of the country. This was not one major conglomerate country. They were the United States of America. I think today we conceive of the USA, and in function it does operate more this way than it used to. We conceive of it as a single country, and the states are more provinces than true states as they used to be. And that's, again, a whole nother conversation on that. But the whole idea there being that if we do unite, we can exist and we can overcome the powers against us from Great Britain. But we don't want to consume ourselves either. Everything down to Congress with the House and the House of Representatives and the Senate, and how there's two representatives and then there's representatives based on the population of the state, and the states themselves wanting to protect themselves from each other. Anyway.
Did you get more patriotic doing this project? No, I just sense that you're like,
yeah. Well,
you have a love for it and like an energy for
Yes.
it. And so was that something that you had before this project, or
That's
in
why I
researching it, were you like, this is really cool?
Yeah, no, that's why I laugh. I do have that, and it's not something I'm always putting out in the public eye per se, but it is something that I'm very passionate about. Not just the history of it. The history I appreciate very much, but what it is underscored by is what was driving them and why it was important. Because I think it was as much a spiritual thing as anything else, at least for Patrick Henry. I think that is something he was putting out there. And you see language, not just from him, but in his speech, in the Declaration of Independence, that is an appeal all the way up to God. Yeah. It wasn't just a matter of, we don't want to deal with the king telling us what to do. Certainly they didn't, but it wasn't just a simple matter of, wouldn't it be great? It was truly no, this is immoral, and you must stop or we must separate. It was a moral case being made, and it wasn't just founded on logic. Patrick Henry, master of using logic in his cases, and that's very much in there, but the appeal goes all the way up to God's moral law. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. and that patriotic storytelling and how it intermingles with faith. Because a lot of your projects are faith-based.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And so, yeah, anything I do, there's got to be purpose in it. There may be some jobs that are a little more lighthearted, and that's fine. It's all fun. But the ones that I love the most are the ones that are purposeful.
And is that something that as an actor, are you able to kind of put yourself out there and say, you know, I'm a faith-based actor, and that's important to me, and those are the only kind of projects I want to work on, or what I choose to work on? Like, how do you navigate that within? I'll use the Hollywood machine, though I know it's now beyond Hollywood. How do you reflect that as an actor, and how does that change the way that you approach your career?
That's a really good question. I mentioned a few, I want to say apprehensions, because I didn't seriously consider acting at the beginning of my career, and there's a whole story with that and how I got started. But I do believe timing was very important to that, going back to those conversations with COVID. But another thing I thought, and that again had to go with, do I have to move to LA or New York? And I know people that have been in those worlds, and I've seen how that can change people, and I hate the very idea of selling yourself for something. Yeah. And that's something I wanted to avoid, and I didn't see a way to move forward in this career without that battle in the way. And so again, that comes down to timing. The entire Christian faith-based world, and I think even beyond that, sometimes they call it uplifting content, that sort of thing. And I think that's losing the purpose to not acknowledge God and the higher truths of Him. But there's a greater appetite than there used to be. There's a greater awareness of where Hollywood has fallen short, of how content honors darkness and tells lies and uses part truths to pitch it as true. But over time, as happens when you lie, what do they say? That you can fool some of the people all the time, and all the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. And the more it goes on, the more people catch on to things. I think that especially happened in the last 6 years or so. I think the entire COVID era pushed people's awareness, not just in film, just in general, in so many ways, but certainly in film, certainly in entertainment, not just film, music, all kinds of art. In that amount of time too, because there were several things that I believe God did to pave the way for the journey of my own career before I knew it was going to happen. And a large part of that had to do with building an awareness of the importance of art and culture. It's not that it wasn't there, but there wasn't a passion for that at some point, and there was an awakening to that, of how impactful it is on people and how important it is.
Yeah, so tell us how you got into this career, because you've kind of alluded to it a little bit. But,
yeah.
But were you full-blown drama nerd? Like, okay. I was. My dad was the president of our local playhouse.
Awesome.
In my little tiny town in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And so I literally grew up on the boards. So I was playing with my dolls, in the wings of, and I would play dress up in that. We had a huge costume area. Yeah. And so I played dress up in there, and then I, started acting at a young age. And then, but it did a little professional acting in college and, choirs and stuff after that. So I was the theater nerd who, like, every summer was doing a show, was constantly in a performance, like, all the way into college. So was that you, or did it come later?
It came later.
Yeah.
The seed was there. The seed was always there. I went to college for mechanical engineering, never changed my major, knew that was what I was going to do. I was
mechanical engineering?
Yeah.
Let's take a moment. Okay.
I was notoriously left-brained. I was the math guy. I mean, I did fine in all my other classes. Yeah. I was a good student. I performed well, all that.
But had you done, like, high school theater or anything like that before then?
I was mainly focused on academics and then sports. I did cross-country, track and field, that sort of thing.
Yes.
It got in the way a little bit with some of the arts, and that definitely goes into a time when I was not ready to appreciate it.
Yeah. I was an all-state shot putter and the
Oh, wow.
lead in the school musical. So
Respect that.
It could have been done.
I know.
But I
well,
get it.
I did one play. It was the very last play before I graduated. Going into senior year, I had the bucket list of things I wanted to do. There were a few that were requirements. I took an art class, Art 1. You had to take at least that. And I wished by the end of it that I had taken it earlier, because there were a couple others in that 4-year span I would have foregone in order to do that. It was different from my physics and calculus, and I say that as someone who loved my physics class. But
Okay, so we're in college for mechanical engineering.
yes,
and
yes.
then
And by this point, I had done one play in my life. I had a little bit of like middle school side classes in theater, that kind of thing, but I had done one play, Arsenic and Old Lace.
of course,
Yes, it was a whole lot of fun.
everyone has to do it once.
Once, yes. And that, again, was something I thought, man, I wish I had done this earlier. I would have done more of it. Wasn't at the time a thought, though, of pursuing it. Especially at that era, I was thinking in terms of career, money, that kind of thing, not chasing it, but engineering and acting, right? I saw the cost-benefit analysis of going both different routes, and so I was all in on the engineering. And all through college, it was a thought, hey, it would be fun to do a little theater on the side. And that's where it was, on the side. Maybe I can do that. It just never came together. And then I got out and started working. And again, it was always a thought, it'd be really fun to do some community theater. And I just kind of never got around to it. Well, finally, when the time came, and I'm a few years into this career now, so I actually switched over to software engineering, went to one of those boot camps, Nashville Software School, actually in Nashville, obviously. It was one of the oldest, earliest schools of that nature, the boot camp style, still around today. And even at the time, they were very mission-driven. And so I spent 6 months in that school, and that switched me into software, and I started working at a little startup company, and it was a whole lot of fun. And I really jumped into that because I was passionate about that. I was passionate about software. I was good at it. I understood logical flow, and it was a hobby before I jumped into that. And that was the realization of, why am I not doing this as a job? Especially, it's a not as good of a job market as it used to be, but it's been hot.
Especially with AI.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
Yeah.
But over the years, it's been a hot field. It's been people constantly knocking at your door, trying to get you to change your job and hop over to them. And so it was accessible, it was fun, it was flexible, it paid well, it just had everything, and I loved doing it. And so I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. But there was always this element, nonetheless, of feeling like it wasn't the ultimate purpose, but not knowing what to do about that. And sometimes you just have to sit in that and not force anything, but couldn't shake that feeling. I wouldn't say it was an everyday thought, but it was there. It's definitely something that has shifted since moving into acting. As far as how that started, it actually started through a young woman that I dated for a couple months.
There's always a girl.
There's always a girl.
There's always a girl or a guy.
Girl in my case. She worked more behind the camera. She'd done some acting. People tend to gravitate one direction or the other. But she had a sister and a brother that did a lot in front of the camera. And by that I mean they had done projects that I recognized, high-profile stuff. And so that's one reason I'm not necessarily naming who. I don't know that she or any of them would care per se, but that to say I hadn't known people who were actors, but I had not known people who were in all these films that I had seen or at least heard of before. And this was a whole new world to me. And her brother had just had this major project come out. And anyway, I was drawn in. I was interested, and it was a topic she loved as well. And she was actually working at the time on the casting side of a couple projects. And I had the chance through that to see that side of things, see self-tapes people had sent in, and seeing the different actors doing the same scene with each of these tapes. And I remember sitting with her one night while she's going through, and we're just hanging out. She's working here. She's filing it down, deciding who the top of the crop is going to be. And we'd watch a tape, and I wouldn't say anything, but I'd formulate my thoughts on the tape, and who am I to say what was good or what was bad, but I would go off of how I felt it was, and then I would listen to her and see what she did, what she picked, and it was almost perfect alignment. What I thought she would say, oftentimes in specific ways, and I was sort of testing myself and my intuitions and my aptitude. It was a thought at the time, almost this weird little sense, but I wouldn't have claimed it to be much more than that at the time, but I couldn't help testing myself in that way. But we were together for a couple months or so, and ultimately we're not together. We didn't go beyond that, and we've remained friends since then. And but towards the end of that time, having all that time to see into this world and talk about it, and I finally got over my own sense of, don't bother with this. I'm sure people all the time go, oh, I think I can do this. But I finally just said, I've been thinking about it and not saying it, but I keep seeing this all the time, and I got to admit, this looks like fun. And she took it and received that very well and goes, hey, I've got an idea. I've got these sides here. It's this character that we've already cast for this other thing, but let me send these to you. It kind of fits you. Let's just shoot a self-tape for fun. And it was this nice, meaty pair of scenes. There's this more comedic scene and this more serious scene, all from the same character from the same project. And it took us about a week to get together. And in that time, I've not been taught. I've not taken any classes, obviously, at this point on how to audition, what to do for sides like this. But I've got the words down. I'm, driving in my car and going through it in my head as if I'm talking to someone next to me in the scene, that sort of thing.
And the person driving next to you is like, what is that guy doing? As you're like talking to the person next to you.
Yeah. That is a habit. I'll be walking around my house, and if someone else is around the house or out and about and going through the lines and da-da-da, and boy, they're going to think I'm some crazy person because you get a little lost in your head, which is great. That's supposed to be free and in the moment like that. But you go, oh, hold on, this person buying milk next to me doesn't know what I'm doing. I should probably be a little bit more aware than that. But it's good practice. But anyway,
I think you just need to bust it out in the grocery store.
just
start saying your lines.
I've heard of people that practice accents that way. They'll just hold British or whatever accent that is and see how long they can pose that way. So I might have to try that, test out the character and see if it sells.
I did. I was an improv actress in college, and I did those mystery dinner theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever done those? And so to try on the character, because they give you a rough outline, and that's it. And then you wing it the rest of the time, right? Mm-hmm. They give you like at 7 o'clock this has to happen. At 7:05 you see your old boyfriend across the room. At 7:15, his new girlfriend comes up and slaps you. At 7:30 you go to the bathroom and there's a gunshot, and then you come back full of blood, right? So that's all they give you. Yeah. And so I used to like try on different outfits and go to the mall or like walk around different stores and stuff just to get on, have the character on me and see how people interacted. Yeah. So that's always the fun part.
That's awesome.
So. Okay. So you did a couple tapes.
Yeah. We hopped up to my apartment. I lived about 5 minutes from work, and she worked across the street. And so we took a lunch break one day, hopped over there for about an hour or so. I didn't have a tripod or anything like that, but she had her phone, and I had a large cardboard box from a gift. I think it was a smoker that I had. I still had the box.
How Tennessee of you.
Very, very much. But it was there. It was perfect. We stacked it up, and I think a few books on, just this total makeshift thing so that she could hold her camera at a constant height. And she gave me tips. Again, I've never shot a tape before, so eye line, blinking, those things to be aware of, your space you have to work with, all that stuff. But as far as the performance, just let me go with it. Didn't direct anything like that because it was just to see what can you do. And I don't recall actually seeing any of the tapes myself, but I do recall her watching it. For whatever reason, I'm in front of her and she's holding the phone, watching it, so I can see her face. I can't see the screen, but watching her face as I still have that memory of her face lighting up, and I'm sure I was very in tuned in that moment that it would stick in my memory. But the way she lit up as she went and goes, Carter, you need to be doing this. I don't know what I was going to say if that was bad, but that was better than at least half what I get in. We got to get you headshots and put you on Actors Access, and you need to be doing this, and just really breathe that in, not just, yeah, that was good. It was, that was the thesis I got from it was you need to be doing this. You've got it. And that was something she had shared with me before, and I've heard since that some people just have, I think this is true of all kinds of crafts and professions, some people have an aptitude, and you can always learn and grow in your craft no matter what it is. And that was her moment of the same person who had learned everything I had up to that point instilling in me, yes, you've got it and you should be doing it. And so what really mattered in that moment was I believed that.
And you wanted it.
Yes, I
right?
wanted it.
Like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of a sudden you were like, okay, I don't know, this isn't some like kind of a lark anymore. This is a like,
right. It
hey.
wasn't just some thing, and it didn't seem so silly anymore. And there was a major part of me that needed that validation, that needed somebody with the authority as I perceived it here.
We all need that.
Yes, yes. And I still needed more. And there's so many things that I believe are God things, and some are big and some are small, all part of this journey. But there was a lot of validation, particularly in those early months. And it really seemed to me like once I got to the point where I didn't need it so much, it's not that there's never compliments, but there seemed to be a surplus of validation when I was in that season when I needed it. And from people whose opinions mattered, because there's always people who go, oh, that was great, but people who would make a note to go, hey, I've been doing this and this before, and I see this, and keep on it. And so
I find in those moments where I have self-doubt,
yeah.
I'll always say, God, give me some sort of a sign. Am I supposed to be in this or am I not supposed to be in this?
Yes.
And oh, by the way, God, you made me not very smart. Totally your fault. So if you're going to send me a sign, it's got to be big, it's got to be neon, and it's got to be like, there has to be no guessing.
Yes.
Because I won't see it otherwise, right? And I feel like every time I put that out and, out there, it comes back.
Yeah.
Every time, one way or another.
Yes, yes. Well, I think that's why it's important to say that validation was coming in a season when I needed it. Because that was one element, and there are some bigger ways. There's some stories that were some very specific things, such that I could not say that wasn't God, such that I couldn't even say I don't know, such that I would have to say that couldn't have been anything but God, and never something, in my case, that was breaking the laws of physics for some kind of miracle. You read about that kind of thing in the Bible, and I know people who have experienced that sort of thing. It was always something as simple as somebody telling me that sort of thing. Hey, you need to be doing this. And then in later seasons, the needs would be different. In later seasons, there were tests that came that I wasn't ready for earlier, that I might have misinterpreted at the time as going, oh, this must not be the right journey. Later tests came that seemed to really get in the way of things and shut doors that I was so certain were right. And sometimes it's not the right door, but some of those were the right doors. But there were moments where the calling was to say, hey, can you look back on everything that's happened up to this point and say anything other than that was God? And the answer was no, I cannot do that. I have to say that was God. I cannot say anything else. Then what are you worried about? In the biggest case of that, and this was about a year and a half in, it would have been a little over a year, because at my old job, and there's a long story with that, but that old job came to not the most fun end a couple of years ago. And
it happens.
Yeah. Well, in that same week, I was introduced to my agent at the time. She's actually retired a few months ago, but she was very well known in the Christian space in particular. Very same week, it was multiple ways that the old world doors were closing and the new world doors were opening.
And when you look at it, you're like, what? Like,
I knew in the moment that
right.
It was supposed to be happening. I knew it in a piece of me you can't take out with surgery. And it didn't mean it was easy. I could feel the stress in my nerves and even the release of being out of it. And I can still feel sadness thinking on how an old path came to an end, but I was so comfortable at the same time. I even wanted to go down this other path. And in a way that's made it easier to be forgiving and releasing. But It's still not a perfect walk in the park. Some things are just hard. But I still, even while it was happening, knew it was the right direction for things. But in the seasons after that, I was still considering the route of still being in the software world while acting. I didn't believe that was what was supposed to happen, but I didn't want to make, I don't want to say I didn't want to make that decision myself. I didn't want to get in the way if that's what God wanted me to do, and I didn't know what he wanted me to do. I believed.
And it's scary because you still have to pay your bills,
right?
I mean, that's a big leap.
Yes. Yeah. I did, though, have a sense of comfort that I could always go get another software job. And again, this was a field that was always super easy to get into, and I won't go down this too much, but I was way underpaid at my old job, and that had part of the comfort of when it went away of like, well, fine, that's a pay raise. But I realized, one, I didn't have the heart to go back into that world, certainly not at that time, and I still don't feel that at the moment. I really loved the craft itself of software engineering. I still got little side projects and things like that. But to go into a full-time job with it was just not where my heart was. And two, the market was rough. This was 2024, and there were that's a whole thing, but it was rough. And so I knew it would be a bit of a fight to even go that route that my heart just wasn't in. In all that time, there was only one interview I had that was a place that I thought, ooh, that would be cool. And it paid more than I was hoping, but not outside the range of what I could expect. It's just top for what I could hope for. It was cool software, what they were doing. It wasn't just, I don't want to judge anything here. It wasn't just insurance or something
right.
like
Yeah,
that.
I was going to say banking software.
Right. Yeah. It was cool. It was like the stuff you'd talk about at parties, and the people there were cool, and someone helped me even get in the door at the first place to have that interview, and I bombed it. And I had a bit of an insecurity as a developer that I had been at the same place for so long when most people have job hopped, and you do have the potential to learn more when you hop around a little bit. And so that just brought up all my sense of insecurities, and it threatened the belief that I could go back. Even if it wasn't a 0%, it's like I'd have to fight really hard for the chance to go down a path I don't even want to go down, or else I'm all in on the acting. There was no more safety net. That's what was lost after that. And I felt that in my nervous system for a good 2 days. I could feel it in my body. After those 2 days, I'm musing about it as I've been doing for 2 days. And for the first time in that span, my mind goes to the story of Peter when he steps out of the boat as Jesus is walking on the water and says, "Lord, let me come out to you." And he says, "Yes, do it." Peter steps out and he starts walking on the water. And skipping to the end of that story, he begins to sink. He calls out to Jesus, who lifts him up and says, "Where'd it go? Your faith?" Because he was walking on the water. He didn't just sink immediately. He steps out, he starts walking, and then he begins to sink. And I've known that story forever, but my mind, for the first time, went to the whole cause and effect process of this. Why did he start to sink? Well, he lost his faith in the moment. That's spelled out. Well, why did that happen? That's also spelled out. Because he grew afraid. And why did he grow afraid? Because, and it's also spelled out, he's looking at the storms and the waves and the rain and the evidence that he will sink and die, because that's what that is. If you're out on the top of the water in the middle of that, you're going to drown and die. Why is he looking at that? Because he was looking at Jesus, and he took his eyes off and onto the threats around him. That's why. Yeah. That's why he began to sink.
Just
That's
like you took your eye off the acting and said, maybe I'll go back into the software.
Well, off of God, really is what it was. Because by this point, there were many things, and so many things I wish I had written some of them down, and I still need to, because sometimes I'll remember something, oh yeah, I do remember that, I need to write that down, and so that's a habit I need to build. But that's how many times things happened that kept the journey moving in the direction it was supposed to go. And it instilled this absolute belief, because that was the question, after coming to that story, the absolute belief that it was God. And the question after that story was, do you believe that was God? And the answer was, I know that was God. Yeah. Then what are you worried about? Just keep your eyes on him. That was the thesis of it.
I love that.
And that's not even the end.
Oh, there's more. Sorry.
There's more, because I still had one little question in that. And the question was that me that just sat around and thought about that and went to that? And I do believe God answers you in that way. And I've had so many times that I've prayed, sometimes over a question I've been musing on for so long, and then I start to pray, and as I'm praying about it, and then it'll come to me. And even then, I mentioned being left-brained. Are you familiar with the rubber duck method? It's beyond programming software, but it's common in that. I had this instructor in college. Again, I was mechanical engineering. That's where I was introduced to software. You had to take all these classes, and that's where I learned had the aptitude for it. But there was this one professor that we swore had this talent to where you just asked him the question when you were stuck on something, and before you finished asking him, you would go, "Oh, I see it now." And we thought there was some way he was listening to us that led us through that, and maybe there was something to that. But there's something about explaining the problem out loud to someone that helps you to walk through it. And then by the time, before you've even finished asking the question, you go, "Oh, I see it now." The rubber duck method is to set up a rubber duck on your desk, and when you're stuck, explain it to the rubber duck, and that will bring you to the answer through the process of explaining. So again, I have this background of software engineering and this technical, logical side. So I'm still questioning myself, is that just the rubber duck method when I'm praying and I'm speaking to God and it comes to it? And I don't think those elements of how our brains work go away. I believed it was God, but I didn't know. 2 days later, again, and my nerves are fine in those 2 days. I'm in peace with it. And I don't believe I needed anything more, but maybe it was just an extra gift, or maybe I did and God just knew that best. But I'm at lunch with a friend, and we're a couple hours in at this point, just having a nice time, nothing else going on that day, and I don't remember at all what the conversation was on, but whatever it was, he goes, "That reminds me of this story from the Bible." Actually, I've known it my whole life, but there was this one element from it that I'd never thought of before. And it's the story of when Peter gets out of the boat and starts walking in the water. And the element I'd never noticed before is that the reason he starts to sink is because he takes his eyes off the mark, off of Jesus, and he starts reiterating the whole thing back to me. And that is the only time in my life that anyone has reiterated or iterated that point to me.
Wow.
And I just couldn't help but
You're like,
laugh
all right.
inside. And
all right, God, this is what we're doing.
Yes.
We're going to be an actor.
Yes. And again, even if someone else were to witness all this themselves, you could never scientifically prove that's what's going on, and that's the faith element of it. But I can't believe anything else.
I love that. And it seems to be working out.
Well, that's another part of it too. And there's times, again, where there's storms and you just have to keep your eyes on him, and he's bigger than the storm. He's the Lord over it all. And if he's called you into it, then it's not on your shoulders. It's on his, and the world is not going to get in the way of it. And the enemy will do everything he can to convince you that the storm is a threat and that he's the big bad dog of the world, and he's the one that gets to decide if you're going to get through or not. And he has a chance, if God's working on something, to get in the way. The enemy can't do things without your agreement. Yeah. All the way back to the Garden of Eden. Man falls, mankind, because the enemy convinced man of something. Yeah. The enemy did not cause man to fall. The enemy led man to choose into his fall. And to date, that's how he works. He's a snake from the beginning.
I feel like I could listen to you tell Bible stories all day. But I want to talk about your new project, The Servant.
Yes.
Okay. So I thought it was funny because you're with sort of an old school cop, a guy who rode a really fast car, and Hercules.
Right. It's a pretty motley crew with it all.
It's a motley crew.
Yeah,
All right. So if you don't know who those people are, so Eric Estrada, who was in Chips, a million. I remember Chips from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was before my day.
Right.
But,
and
yeah.
John Schneider, right?
Yes.
Who was in Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. And Smallville, which would be more in my generation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Fuck
and then
yeah.
Kevin Sorbo, who
Kevin
was
Sorbo.
Hercules. But
yeah.
tell us more about that project. and
Yes.
What your role is, if you can tell us.
Yes,
No
well,
spoilers.
It's changed a little bit. So when I came on, my character was a detective, and he's now a U.S. Marshal. And this project, it sort of began, I don't want to say it began as one thing and became another, because there have been some evolutions, but the core idea of it has always been the same from the beginning. The core idea is one character in particular, but overall a group of people who are former military, and this one character in particular had come to God and in his time since, and now there is purpose for them in that old skill set that they're using to protect a group of people, but he's dealing with the conflicts of his morality that comes from his faith in God and navigating in that. The core idea of the show, much as I mentioned with Vindication as a cop show is the core, but you have these Christians who are navigating it, is this is not a show that is meant to be in any way preachy or spilling out. It's not intended to be per se an overtly Christian show, but rather it is an action show focused on these characters, and these characters are operating out of that because they are Christian. And I am spinning on what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say.
Well, don't tell us anymore if you're not allowed to.
Well, I can say it's rife with a lot of really cool elements and a lot of action and explosion and cool cars and some more cool people that people would recognize that I'm not allowed to say yet.
Ooh, very exciting.
Yes, it is very exciting, and it is going to be so much fun to make. I cannot wait to actually get started with the shooting part.
Oh, so you haven't started shooting yet?
Well, we began at one point, and that's when some doors opened up and the project became bigger. It was always conceived to be multiple seasons and multiple episodes, but that's not an uncommon thing in the independent world, and there's no limits to what something can be. I think of what's Napoleon Dynamite.
I love Napoleon Dynamite.
Right, yeah. And it has these very modest beginnings, and now here we are 20-something years later after this highly successful feature film, and there's just no limits to where something can start and what it can become. And this is another story that's had God involved in the entire process. And so the rate at which it grew, that to come back to shooting, we shot stuff that became more of a proof of concept that led to all the other doors that opened. And I frankly don't even know all of the details of that story myself. It was so fast paced. And, but yes, with that, we're going to be shooting the entirety of it. Anything we've shot is just for the sake of
it's like the pilot.
all that. Right, exactly,
Yeah.
like the pilot, yeah. Yeah, you think Game of Thrones and Big Bang Theory, I think, where their pilots had some major changes by the time they start shooting. So that'd be the best way to explain that as far as past shooting goes. But that's
so
partly,
when do you start shooting again?
Yeah, well, I was
soon?
going to say that's partly why I'm so excited, because there was just so much in just that element of it. When I'm talking about the cars and the explosions, there were things we already got to jump into, so I guess we'll get to jump in and do it again and have more fun. But that is supposed to be started. I do not have exact dates yet, but it's supposed to be started later this year. And that's probably the extent that I know as far as release details and that kind of thing.
Maybe end of 2027, conservatively.
Conservatively.
I don't know how long these things take.
Yeah.
But, well, we're excited to see it. We'll follow you. Where should we follow you so we know when it comes out?
I'm most active on Instagram, Carter Nelms, kept it simple. I have launched my own website now, which I had to build myself because that's my background, carternelms.com. Again, keeping it simple. Those would be the two best places to find me. Instagram, carternelms.com. Search for Carter Nelms, you'll find me.
I think that's all the places.
That's
All the good places.
That's all the good places.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Same.